Here's what's coming up on the Cold Popcast.
But I think that always still goes back to like how you define God. Some people may see it as that. Some people may see God as like an actual like entity. I have an understanding of how the world works based on my experience in the world, but I will acknowledge that I don't have an understanding of what is controlling that. I believe that if I just, do what I'm doing and abide by those rules governed by God knows what, then I will be safe. And I think in a sense, maybe that is belief in God. What's poppin', everybody?
Welcome back to the Cold Popcast.
I'm Zoe.
And I'm Steve.
All right, grab your rosary, everybody, because we're going to be talking about what is faith.
Yeah, so faith is defined as a complete trust or confidence in someone or something. Secondary definition of it would be a strong belief in God or in the doctrines of a religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. So that's a technical definition, but what I would like to say is that a lot of people see faith as more of a noun, right? Mm-hmm. But in my opinion, I see faith as more of a verb, right? So rather than faith being a person, place, or a thing, I see faith more as like an action, similar to a verb, or similar to love, for example. So like, when someone says like, I'm in love with somebody, or when someone says I have love for somebody, the love itself isn't necessarily a thing. It's rather an ongoing course of action that is affecting both people. If you're looking for a noun, then I would say belief is probably a closer word. It's similar to faith, but I would say belief is the thing that constitutes faith. When you put belief into action, it becomes faith, and then the doer becomes faithful.
Okay, I think I see what you're saying, because I would want to argue that like faith and belief are kind of like synonymous, where it's like you can have a belief the same way you can have faith, but I think in your definition you're saying it's not necessarily a noun because like faith can evolve.
Right.
It's kind of like if you're running, you can run faster. So it's like it's not just something that's stagnant or a static like thing. Mm-hmm. That kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, like the fact that it's not static is sort of what drives the idea of faith being different from belief. Like a lot of people would assume like, okay, well, believing in something is the same as having faith in something. Right. But faith is it's almost hard to quantify it in like, words almost, in my opinion, because it's like it's more of a spiritual thing. Like if you have faith in a marriage, for example, mm-hmm. It's like, do you have a thing that drives your marriage forward, or do you have an ongoing set of things or a set of actions that drive your marriage forward, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, to sort of back that point up, I have this video from NY Life. It's a commercial that was actually shared with me by my therapist. It's pretty interesting. It doesn't talk about faith, but it talks about love. So let's go ahead and watch that.
The ancient Greeks had 4 words for love. The first is philia. Philia is affection that grows from friendship. Next, there's storge, the kind you have for a grandparent or a brother. Let's go. Third, there's eros, the uncontrollable urge to say, I love you. The 4th kind of love is different. It's the most admirable. It's called agape. Love has an action. This is good. It takes courage, sacrifice, strength. Okay. For 175 years, we've been helping people act on their love, so they can look back or look ahead and say, we got it right.
All right, yeah, so that's that.
We did good.
That was beautiful, Steve.
So basically, the reason why I played that is because, when you think about it, the idea of faith is comprised of all of the actions of love towards a God, rather than just following the doctrines of the God, I guess.
Okay.
That's sort of what I'm getting at here.
Oh, okay, so it's like there's a lot of layers to it, basically.
Yeah, there's
pieces.
more layers.
Okay.
People who have faith typically have some level of intrinsic relationship with whatever they have faith in. So generally, you can assume that faith hinges on unproven understanding of a person, process, or deity. Through that understanding, confidence is developed and or exercised. So as you gain more confidence in something, someone, or a process, then you gain more faith in it. For example, if you are a writer and you don't believe that you can write very well to begin with, and then you practice writing more often, then you get better at writing. If you're a faithful person, then you practice faith more often, and you become more faithful of a person. So I understand that faith doesn't necessarily have the same sort of linguistic nature as like a word like writing, but I still sort of see it as more of a verb. But that's not really the main point of this episode, whether it's a noun or a verb. But that's just like the opening point.
Okay.
So now I wanted to get into a couple different things. So with faith, the school of faith actually describes faith as 3 different aspects. In whom do we believe? What do we believe? And why do we believe? Right? So with that in mind, like, could you give an example of something that you would have faith in, Zoe?
Okay. I know you get the idea of like, did you say earlier like having faith in a marriage or something like that?
Yeah, faith in a marriage, for example, or intimate relationship.
Okay. I think faith could be like a faith in your ability to accomplish something. Like I have faith that if like let's say you apply to a job and it's like I have faith I'll get the job. I feel like I did everything right. I gave a good interview, and then all you can do at that point is basically believe that good things are going to happen in exchange for your efforts. And I think that's kind of like an example of what faith is, like having that belief in something, but you can't necessarily ensure it. And I think that's where faith takes the place. So that I think is a good example.
Yeah, it's a pretty good example. I think that for me, the best example obviously is like a religious faith. Like through a religious faith, you basically understand that, and it could be any religious faith. Personally, I'm Christian, but in terms of religious faith, you have an understanding with yourself spiritually, that regardless of what is going on in your actual life, that there is something higher than you that sort of dictates how you will act. So you have faith that if you act in that way, you will be pleasing to that higher power, basically. That's pretty much how most faith work.
Yeah.
Some of them don't have a higher power, but so we're actually going to go through a couple different verses from different religions just so we can have a little bit better of an understanding of what faith is. I actually want to start with the Quran verse. Surely those who believe and do deed of righteousness, their Lord will guide them by their belief. So that's not specifically saying like, oh, this is the definition of faith. But the faith comes in where you decide that if you believe, then what you do will be in alignment with whoever you are serving, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be like from a religious aspect, but there are actually other verses in the Quran, like whosoever fears Allah in whatever he does, Allah will open for him a way out of the difficulties and provide for him from whence he could little imagine. And whoever trusts in Allah, he is enough for him. So when you have faith in something, it's like your faith should be enough to get you through the process. So like when you're talking about a job, you're talking about a job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're talking about a job, the faith that you are capable of doing the job should allow you to do the job effectively. I don't know if you've ever experienced that in your life. Has anyone here ever experienced that where it's like, you're doing something and maybe you don't necessarily think that you can do it, but because someone had faith in you, you're more capable of achieving it, maybe?
Yeah, I kind of think about that, and we'll pass it around. I kind of think about that as like a placebo effect a little bit, where it's like, if you believe, like, it's like, there's been cases where it's like someone would take a medicine that's like not necessarily like meant to combat whatever you're dealing with, but people would like will feel better because like they mentally believe that like it was supposed to make them feel better. And I think that is kind of like you can have a subconscious effect on outcomes just based off of believing that like this is how it's supposed to work. You can kind of like in a way will something into existence. I think it kind of works like that, but more in the metaphysical ideology or like the spiritual aspect of it. I understand like that concept of like if you believe you can do something, I think it will enhance your ability to actually do it. Because if you don't believe, I think that's like self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're trying to learn to ride a bike and you think you're gonna fail, you're probably gonna fail. But if you think like I'm gonna get this next try, you're going to pretty much artificially or like you're gonna convince yourself to like put in more effort to make that result happen.
Right.
I think that's a way of how faith can manifest as something that can actually make you better.
So is it really a placebo effect, though, if it like is consistent and almost tangible? I guess you can't really say that the faith itself is tangible, but in a sense, it's like if you have that belief in yourself, you will do better. So is it really a placebo?
Well, it's not guaranteed.
Exactly.
It's not guaranteed, though.
It's not guaranteed. Okay. Well, do you have any more on that? Like, let me pull that thread a little bit.
He's honestly saying everything that I'm thinking, honestly.
Yeah. I was just bouncing off what you said. I was just going to say, like, I think I still see this placebo only because I know we've kind of expounded on faith from, like, the spiritual aspect of, like, belief. But it's kind of, like, goes into, if you try to ground it more, is faith necessarily logical? Which means that, like, I kind of see faith as, like, it's basically a belief in something without proof. So
Okay.
it's, it's not like, which means it can't be like, it can't tangibly have an effect. So I think all it is just it bolsters your abilities in a way, because if you have faith you're going to do something and you have that belief, the placebo effect, or the idea that like just my idea is going to make me do better, I think that that basically like kind of enhances your own output. So it's not the faith, I think, that's actually doing it. I think it's the belief that like you're going to do better is making you perform better. But it's not necessarily the faith is actually having a tangible effect, because it's like even if it wasn't like a faith, even if you took faith out of it, it's just like it still all comes out to like your own output.
Well, but imagine if you were doing something and you didn't have faith in yourself to be able to achieve it. Your output would be minimized.
It could be. It
could be, but it would be.
Well,
because if you don't think you can do it, then
Yeah.
you're not going to be at your highest level of performance, I would assume.
Well, like he
I
said,
agree
it doesn't
with that.
guarantee anything though. So that's
Exactly.
why I kind of said like, you could still have faith and still fail. So that's why it's like I think it's a placebo, because it doesn't guarantee anything. It's just sometimes it can enhance your own output. But that's not going to make the result better.
I feel like you can have faith and you will fail. You can still fail, but it's like I look at it more of like you fail forward type of thing. Like you have faith in what you're doing, and you do fail sometimes, but you are getting better, and eventually you will reach what it is that you're trying
But you
to
can't,
achieve.
like I said, it's not guaranteed. You can fail over and over and over and over again. And there are situations where you'll keep trying and you'll get no results.
Yeah.
But you're
It may
more
take
likely.
100
You're more
100
like. Sorry,
tries.
what'd you say?
It may take like 100 tries.
And with that 100 tries point, you're more likely to continue failing if you don't have faith in the process that you're engaging in.
Well,
Right.
would the faith be decreasing if I'm steadily failing?
If you're
If you fail
steadily
100
failing, it may actually increase your faith, depending on if you learn every time you
But
fail.
my question is, could it decrease?
It could decrease, yeah. It's potential. There's potential for it to decrease, but that just depends on the character that you have, I guess.
agree.
So, like, if you are someone who is like, like it says in the Bible, "Oh, ye of little faith," stuff like that. If it's like if you have very little faith to begin with, then you are likely to have less faith going on.
But my
if you,
point more so is you could have 100% faith, and then as you fail, it can decrease until a point where you're just like, I give up.
True.
I kind of was thinking like how much, because if you go off the idea that like, well, if you keep trying, you're gonna get better, and eventually you'll do it. I'm like, but that kind of just decreases it down to a numbers game. That's like even in sales. It's like, it's like if I go outside during a thunderstorm and I stand under a tree and I say to myself, I'm not gonna get struck by lightning. If I stand there for one day, I might not get struck by lightning. But if I do that every day for like, the next 20 years, and I still don't believe I'm going to get struck by lightning, one day I might get struck by lightning. And so it's like, what, in that aspect, it's like, I didn't believe I was, but it still happened, but even if I believed I would, like, I'm going to get struck by lightning and it took 20 years for it to happen. Is it because faith basically prevailed, or was it literally just a matter of time?
But wouldn't it be better to like have faith in something and continue to chase it and fail and don't actually get there? It would be better to just fail and not actually get there than it would to be to just quit, basically, is what I'm saying.
No, and I'm not saying faith is bad. I think faith is a good thing. Like, you should believe in yourself. I'm just going off the notion of like, can we tangibly quantify faith, and is it like logical in the sense that like having it will actually have tangible effects? Because it could, like I said, I believe that spiritually it can make you, it can help you out in the sense of like making you more confident in how you actually. Oh, go.
well, no, I would just say. So having faith from the spiritualist perspective, it would make you more. I forgot the word I was going to use, but it would just make you more resistant to failure, is what I'm saying. But continue.
Okay.
I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, and that's a good point. It will make you more resistant, because if you like, it's gonna make you more. You're gonna have less of an attitude to stop doing it, because you're gonna have faith like this is gonna happen. And I like I said, that's why I think it's good in that aspect. I'm just trying to say, like, in the tangible realm of like, will this actually affect your outcomes? I don't necessarily think it will. I think it'll just make you more persistent in trying to get your outcomes.
So I got a
have an interesting
question.
little definition, but you can go ahead.
Can faith be bad?
Faith can be bad, yeah.
Okay.
Having
All
faith can be a bad thing, depending on what you have faith in.
True.
right. Yeah, because I was just sitting here
I would
thinking.
like to hear an example. Of
I was
that.
just sitting here thinking, like, could somebody have faith that their bills are going to get paid if they don't work?
Right.
It depends. So on what level do you want an example of faith being bad? Like, do you want an example of like from a spiritual place or from like a physical place? Like what?
I think both ways. It could go either way. Give
Okay,
me
so I
both.
would say faith can be bad. Like, for example, if you say like, I have faith that. If you say like, I have faith that. Oh, here's an example.
Okay.
If you say I have faith that God, I was supposed to be born without one of my legs, right? And then you have that leg amputated because your faith tells you that you shouldn't have had that leg, right? And then you get it cut off, and now you're someone without a leg, right?
Yeah.
I think that through that example, it's like if you think something that is like not necessarily rational or backed by any like actual rationality, then it makes it harmful. So pretty much harm is the factor. If there's a harmful factor to it, if it actually hurts you to have faith in something, then it's probably a net negative. When it comes to a spiritual aspect, it's like if you have faith, like for example, if someone goes out worshiping Satan, knowing who Satan is, like if you read the Bible and say, you know what, I identify with Satan, I'm gonna just be like him. You know, that's bad. that would be like strategically bad.
Yeah,
we got to talk about that one day, Stephen.
Yeah. I actually got a good example. I think faith needs to be grounded in realism, like at all times. I think that's probably one of the big deterring points from people with religion, because a lot of times, like religion requires a leap in faith that's not necessarily always grounded.
Okay.
And I think that's why faith can sometimes be harmful, because like if I believe that if I jump off this building I'm gonna fly, I have faith in it. You know, I'm not accounting for the fact that like people can't fly in reality. So it's like I think that's gonna be harmful because it's like, well, I'm just gonna end up hurting myself. So I think if you have faith but it's not grounded in realism, that essentially just becomes delusion.
But
I
that's
have an
funny.
interesting definition here, actually.
Okay.
All right. So what I think of faith, I think of an accumulated aggregation of belief in something. So I guess breaking that down a bit, accumulation would be, gathering, you're getting more of something, and aggregated meaning like clustering, grouping together, and obviously it's being channeled into something, which is in this case is belief. So you're gaining more and more belief in something, and that's what I think faith is. So whether that belief is positive or negative, whether it's logical or illogical, you have a belief, and you have a certain amount of confidence in that belief that either this will occur, this will not occur, whatever that opinion is. So
That was actually a really good definition.
Yeah,
I
it
like
was.
that. That was like the best way to say it. I couldn't have said it any better than that.
There you go.
Like in terms of like what faith is, like the idea that it's something that is built up, something that is aggregated over time. I think aggregated is actually a perfect word for it. So what were you saying?
Basically the end thing was for me, I'm like, faith without realism is delusion.
Right. Okay. So faith without realism. That's funny because like the two things are basically, that's like saying like the top of a coin without the bottom of a coin isn't a coin. You know, it's like they're two opposite things. You know, you can't really have faith with realism, I guess. In my mind,
I think you can.
Well, I guess I'm speaking from a spiritual perspective. Like, and it depends on what you mean by realism. When you define realism in your perspective.
Okay. Well, it has to be grounded in our reality. So, like, what we could observe to like be possible. That's my idea. So, in the coin example, I was gonna say, well, if you take one side of the coin away, it wouldn't be a coin because part of what a coin is a two-sided thing. So it's like
True.
You know, if you cut if I cut a bike in half, is it still a bike or is it now a unicycle?
No, it's half a bike.
But you see what I'm saying, right? If you take the whole, it can't be the thing now. So I think that's the same thing with faith. It's like if you have faith, it needs to be grounded in what's actually possible, or else it's just illusion. You know, if I try to jump off a roof and I say I have faith, I'm going to fly, people are going to look at me and say, well, he might actually just be delusional.
And
right, but
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, in terms of it being rational, it's like there's a limit. Okay, I understand that there's a limit, and then once you cross over that limit, you become irrational, right? But there's also the matter of like, there are certain things that we can't necessarily know, right?
Okay.
So that goes into religious faith, but even if it goes into like, scientific, like your scientific belief or something. Like,
Right.
you know, look at the Wright brothers. They thought they couldn't fly, or they thought they could fly. No one else thought they could fly. No one thought they could fly for the past 100,000 years. But then these guys figured out how to fly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, there are ways you could figure out how to do things. Like when I say like, you know, from the idea like we can't fly, of course, but like we can figure out, you know, if we understand the mechanics of our world, we can figure out that flight is possible and then work towards that. But like just by yourself, you know, we know that if I jump off a building, I can't fly. That's kind of what that's kind of what I'm saying with it, because and that's where it's like that still relies on realism, because they knew they could fly, but they first have to determine, is it possible? And then once you determine, like, actually, based off what we know, this is possible, then we can actually achieve that goal. But I think, you know, faith also has an aspect of human understanding, because like you said, we're only limited by our own perspective. So there's things in the universe that operate that we might not be able to perceive. But if that's the case, we should be very cautious not to, like, you know, rely on those aspects we don't understand, you know, with such vigor. Because, you know, because then that's when you lead down a path of, if you're not sure this is going to be like help you, or if you're not sure this is how this works, then it wouldn't be wise to, like, you know, invest so much, like, you know, belief in it.
So, but would it be wise to invest no belief in it?
I would say.
Well, wouldn't you say people practice faith every day?
Pretty much, yeah.
Like pretty much every. You get in your car, crank it up. It could blow up on you. You have faith that your car is going to start and get you home. You know, so every day, you know, we practice faith.
Yeah.
So then extending that upward, you know, toward like a religious perspective, right? So if you, I mean, obviously not everyone has faith in any kind of religion, right? But I feel like it's less of a stretch to say, do you have a belief in God? And then it's even less of a stretch to say, do you believe that there's anything higher than you or higher than the humankind? You know, so then you can have a level of faith where it's like you start, like sort of like what Lizzie was saying, it aggregates into becoming a belief in God, and then it aggregates more into becoming a belief in a religion, right?
Yeah.
So basically, I wanted to ask you a question. I wanted to ask, like, do you have faith in the idea that there is a plane of existence higher than that humans typically explore? Like, so the baseline of existence, right? Would you say that there is a plane higher than that consciously?
Well, I think that goes into how someone, I guess, would define God. You know, some people see it as a higher plane of, like, some people see it like a higher plane of causality. Like, I don't know if I walk out the door if I'm going to be attacked by a dog, but I haven't up till this point, and I believe that if I walk out that door again, I won't. You know, that could be a belief in the fact of, you know, just causality.
It's more
of
so
like
confidence, right?
Yeah.
More so like confidence.
Yeah, just kind of
because you walked out that door plenty of times to know in your mind that I'm not going to get attacked by a dog, but you don't know that for sure.
Exactly. But, you know, like I said, you put faith in the fact that it hasn't happened yet, you know, so the chances are pretty low, and you believe in that. Now, is there like a plane of existence that, like, basically controls and regulates, like, causality that affect us? I don't necessarily know that, but you could also argue that could be maybe a faith in a higher plane. You know, I'm basically taking a chance with everything I do, and I know I don't determine that chance, but I also don't know if something does. So I think in a sense that could be looked at as like a faith in a higher plane. But I think that always still goes back to, like, how you define God. Some people may see it as that. Some people may see God as like an actual, like, entity that is like a conscious entity, you know? And I would say that I'm probably more aligned with the idea that I believe that I have an understanding of how the world works based on my experience in the world, but I will acknowledge that I don't have an understanding of what is controlling that. And I believe that, you know, and I believe that, like, basically that law that we abide by in our reality, you know, I believe that if I just, you know, do what I'm doing and abide by those rules governed by God knows what, then I will be safe. And I think in a sense, maybe that is belief in God.
So would you say that basically, is there, I'm trying to think of how to word this, like, so it sounds like you believe in, like, like a matrix of causality, but not necessarily God.
Yeah, I would say that.
Okay. So would you say that there is I already asked that question, I guess. I was gonna say something about the plane, like like a higher plane of existence.
Yeah.
So like, oh, this is what I was gonna ask. So do you think that there's a way to understand things that are higher than yourself? Like, so you're talking about your experience, and you base your perception of reality on your experience, right? So do you think that your experience has already reached its peak? Is there more you could experience? Could you experience beyond where you are currently experiencing? Like, say, for example, one day you started to actually experience spiritual things, right? Would you take those things and would you say, oh, well, I need to go see a doctor because this is crazy? Or would you say, well, maybe my perception up till now was different than where it is. So now I need to have faith and understand and explore, like, oh, what does this mean? What is beyond my perception? Or would you try to go backwards? Back towards where your perception used to be, I guess. And then I'm actually asking Marino this too, both of you guys.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that if something that I couldn't explain happened to me and maybe happened enough times that it would cause me to question it, it's funny that it's like the idea is, would you become more, essentially religious, or would you start to have faith and attribute that to like a God? Because it's like I wouldn't understand it, and it'd probably be beyond my perception. So like I would probably question it. I would look to understand it.
I would go see a doctor.
Yeah, and like I said, I would seek out people that may know more than me. So it's like I'd probably go to a doctor. If they didn't have an answer, maybe I go to a priest, see what he might have to say. But I think it's the interesting thing about it is that like when you do prescribe the idea that like I can't understand this, so like maybe this is God. In a way, religion is like prescribing an answer, which is interesting because it's like a lot of when I hear like religious people speak on it a lot of times, it's like they're like, are you going to, it's like they say like, yeah, are you going to basically just accept that you don't know and basically give it to God essentially? But like in that sense, they're trying to prescribe the answer. Like, well, the answer is God, and God is this. It's like, okay, well, you're saying you know what it is. So is that any different from me basically taking that experience and trying to have a solution to it that is more in line with what I think might be plausible? So it's like, let's say I go to a doctor and I start looking up like, different type of scientific things. And I make my own theory, and it's not God. Is that really any different from what you would do from a religious aspect? Because you still are attempting to understand it by saying it's God.
I would say from the religious component, it would be different because the religious person would say that God prescribed the answer. Right. Obviously, it would take a belief in God for you to actually agree with that. But if you go to a religious person and say like, okay, well, I've been having experiences that feel spiritual, they're odd, I don't understand what this means, like, maybe my thoughts are in a different, lane than they used to be or something like that. And then you say like, well, but I don't believe in God, so I'm going to go to the doctor. He gave me some pills, and now I don't have those thoughts anymore, right? But then the religious person says, well, you don't need the pills, man. You just need God, right?
Right.
And then they tell you to read the Bible, they tell you to, or read the Quran, or they tell you to read something, and then that builds your faith to the point where you don't need the pills anymore, right? Now you've had an experience where you realize that maybe what the religious person was saying actually worked, but it's intrinsically different from the scientific things because the scientific things are physically proven to work, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And how do you know the God thing worked?
Yeah.
How did you come to the conclusion that it was solved just by giving it all to God?
You would come to the conclusion that things were solved because you would notice like tangible change in your life, right? Through the faith. So like you could also go back to the numbers game things I was saying earlier, where it's like, well, I mean, maybe things just got better by random chance. But it's like when you stay on a path of a religious faith for long enough, then you start to realize that you actually have an active transformation process where you change as a person, and then as you change into a new person, you have different results, right? It's the same as if you took religion out of it. If you said like, okay, well, I got a new job and I have faith that I can make it to the highest level of the job, and you continually transform yourself until you reach the point where you're the CEO. It's kind of like the same thing, I guess, if that makes sense. You see the change, you experience the change. Huh?
So it's like a medicine, doctors versus God. It's like, okay, both of these equal output. That's like good, like you've changed or you're cured or you're better. So
yeah, and it's not necessarily the best example because it's like, from my perspective, it's like God made the doctors to provide the medicine. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's not like you're saying like, oh, well, I have cancer, I'm going to just, trust God fully and not, I'm going to eat fruit and, I'm not going to, do chemo or take any pills or whatever you do when you have cancer or anything like that. I actually wanted to read. Can you go to the inductive logic section? I just wanted to go to that just because I was talking about logic a little bit.
Yeah.
So inductive logic is a system of inference that describes the relation between propositions on data and propositions that extend beyond the data, such as predictions over future data and general conclusions on all possible data. So basically, as you grow in faith, you actually start to see things. You have experiences that tie into what you have faith in. Then you can make an assumption based on what you've already experienced, right? A lot of people would say like, okay, well, that's a leap of faith.
Right.
But as you gain more experience and as you gain more data, the leap becomes less distant.
Yeah. Well, from what it seems like inductive logic is the idea like if A equals B and B equals C, then I can, say that A probably equals C. Like I don't have to see that to know if A equals B and B equals C, then A also equals C. You can use inductive reasoning to figure that out. That's basically what that's saying.
Yeah.
Like basically without it necessarily stating that, you can take the facts and basically figure out.
It wouldn't be that A equals C. It would be that A will eventually lead to C.
Well, see, that's the thing. 'Cause that's why I'm just like, would you say that faith is the idea of inductive logic? Because I think the difference between why I don't think faith is necessarily logical is because faith isn't indicative or determined by proof. Like, I think with inductive logic, it's the idea that this is certain and that's certain. Therefore, you can certainly say that these two things align as well. Whereas faith is just kind of like the idea that I think this
without reason.
Yeah,
faith in
and
general.
and I'll have a reason for
Faith in
thinking
general.
this, but I believe it anyway because I want X outcome. So it's like you're missing an equation, and your faith and your faith is there to fill in the blank.
I have an example. Roosevelt. So recently, explain what you did when you went to that company. Can you talk about that?
When I went to what company? What you talking about?
When you got, like you were saying, basically, when dude was like, I'm getting goosebumps right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Rosie, what were you doing over there?
Wait a minute.
Goosebumps.
Okay, hold on. All right,
Basically,
so
like
I know
it's like a perfect example to go with what Zoe was just saying.
No, so all right, so it's a situation where it's me and this guy, right?
Yeah.
All right, listen. All right, look.
All right,
Quit
I'm
the
listening.
jokes,
I'm not
quit
saying
the
anything.
jokes. All right, so it's me and this guy, right? The lead engineer at our company is sick, so he only been at the company for a year, and I've been there like 6-7 months, and we basically had to go to. Okay, we basically had to go to one of our customers to fix a machine that we didn't know enough information about to really be able to, solve the issues. But it was like he was coming from a mindset of, oh, well, we don't know enough about this machine to fix the issues. I'm worried. He was nervous. And I told him, I'm like, basically I uplifted his spirits by saying like, okay, we might not know, but you feel me? We do this. Like, you feel me? This is what they hired us for. You know what I'm saying? So we might not know, but we going to put our heads together. We going to see what the issue is, and you feel me? We going to make it happen. And he that uplifted his spirits. And
But
that's
see,
why
even
he
in
said
that story, they had reason. I feel like they had reason in that story.
Yeah, I can say that.
Okay.
Yeah, because like they relied on them not like blindly. It's like they knew that this is what they do. So
They
it's
knew
like,
something, yeah.
But they'd never experienced the machine before.
But they experienced the machine.
No, did they?
A machine.
A machine.
A machine. That's what I'm saying. They have some type of knowledge.
Their knowledge and experience is what's
Right.
giving them the actual courage or confidence that they can solve that problem potentially.
Right. So when you say proof, it's like when you guys were talking about proof earlier, it's like what qualifies as proof? Do you need proof from another person? Do you need a piece of? Do you need something like a physical thing that is that proof? What is the proof?
Well,
that would
proof for what though? Like what do we?
To me, it's the key behind belief itself.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think
it's so hard for it's so hard for everybody to like concisely say like, okay, this thing is what leads to my belief. Like people have different, what you call them? People have different like
experiences.
Yeah, experiences or understandings of certain things. So it's like, how do you say belief is? How do you guarantee belief in one direction? You can't, because everybody has different beliefs that are based on a ton of different factors. That's what I'm trying to say.
I have to say that let's break down Roosevelt's story a little bit, because I'm like, the first thing you have to ask is, did the was it the supervisor, I guess, that was like trying to determine if you guys could fix this problem or something, Roosevelt?
Nah, it was really just, it was like, okay, so there was an issue, you feel me, and the customer was reaching out about it, and although the lead engineer was sick, we still needed somebody to go out there and hear what the issue is, and you feel me. Well, really just acknowledge the issue, like see what the issues are. Then you feel me. You come up with a solution later.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying?
So
situation.
Yeah, so basically going off that, it's like, would you say it was logical for the company and the customer to believe that they could resolve the issue, or would you say he just had blind faith that they could do it? I would argue it was logical for them to assume that, because one, this is like what they do. They said they have prior experiences. They haven't dealt with this exact problem, but they have enough references and they have enough, just company knowledge to know that they could figure it out. So I feel like it is logical for them to, like, it's more logical for them to be like, I'm pretty sure like they could figure this out. And why I wouldn't say it's just like, 'cause I think maybe your example was like they had blind faith that they would be able to do it. And that led to a solution. I'm like, well, I don't think it was blind faith. I think you'd have a stronger argument if they took 5 guys off the street and said, hey, I need you guys to go solve this. And then they sat there with their hands folded and say, like, this is going to get done. Just you wait. Like, because it's like,
no. Blind faith. So I would never use the example of blind faith. And I don't even think religious belief is blind faith. I think that's just like a secular means of conveying religion. Like, if you convince everyone.
With you, though.
Yeah, it's not
I disagree with you only because.
Well, he's saying it in a different context. Go ahead.
Well, I'm only disagreeing with you because I'm coming from like the biblical. I'm kind of thinking biblical right now. Okay. And I believe, I think it's Hebrew 11. I don't know the verse, but it's, faith is.
It's actually in here. Scroll up. Keep going. Yeah, Hebrews 11. Yeah.
Faith is assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. So when I read that, it's kind of like, to me, it's like, no evidence. There's no evidence.
But it says not seen, not things not evident.
Can you say that they're not using it in that same like thing? Like,
well, let's just go ahead and read the whole thing.
Think about it. It's belief. You have a belief that's not based on, like Alonzo was saying frequently, like logical things or things that you've previously seen, versus belief in something overall as like, belief in something overall versus belief in something that like A plus B equals C. I know A plus B is going to equal C. Or you're just going to overall guess or have faith that A is somehow going to equal C.
Well, no, it's not that A would equal C. It's that A plus B would equal C.
Right. So,
but you just assume that if A plus B equals C, then C plus D probably equals whatever the next letter is in the alphabet. I can't even remember.
But it's blind faith, so it's like you wouldn't know all of those.
Yeah.
But it's not blind because it assumes, basically, when it comes to like a religious faith, it assumes that you've had some form of experience or revelation that you can actually use to build the blocks of faith. It's blind faith when you just say like, you know what? I talked to a guy, he said he believes in Jesus, so now I believe in Jesus. I don't have any context whatsoever. But when you have the context of things like the Bible or the testimonies or witness of other people, then now you have context.
To God, and God will, make sure that things work out for you.
Well,
say it again.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and sorry to cut you off on that one, Lizzie, but just to kind of like give, like, to make it mathematical, to maybe understand like my idea of what difference between like using logic and filling in the gaps with faith. The difference with me is like, if I say 2 plus y equals 4, I have enough information there to logically know that y would equal 2, because I know 2 plus 2 equals 4. So it's like, that's using logic. That's the idea I think of Roosevelt's situation was, where it's just like, they had enough pieces to determine that like we could figure this out. My thing of faith is if I said 2 plus x equals y, I don't have any information to go off to determine what either x or y is. But if I say, well, I believe y is 7, I'm literally filling in the gap with faith. I'm literally just saying, well, I'm prescribing that this is probably going to be y because that's what I truly believe. And with that, I can determine what x is going to be. That's kind of like where in religion, you can necessarily say like, there's like mixed evidence on whether even Jesus existed. but that's a part of the Christian belief. And it's like, not only do I believe he existed, but I believe he was the Son of God and everything he said. So I think that's where faith is. Faith fills in the gap. That's basically, you're taking that leap of faith to give to basically prescribe an answer, so then you can then fill in the blanks.
Right,
I think that's
I don't
what faith
think
is.
I think that's reverse reasoning. I think
prior
that
knowledge.
no, I think that you would base it on, you would say like you would say I have a belief. I have a belief that Jesus may be the Son of God, right? So now I'm going to read the Bible, right? You read the Bible. You read some of it even. You read a good portion of the Bible.
Whoa, wait, I gotta stop you. So you had the belief before you read the Bible? Before you?
Exactly.
Well, no, I didn't have, but I didn't have
answer.
faith. I didn't have faith. I had a belief.
Okay.
I had a belief. You know, I was in a position where I was thinking, well, things aren't going so well, so I need to try something, right? In fact, I always say I would have rather it had been anything but Christ. If you guys, well, Marino didn't, but you guys all knew me 3 years ago,
Right.
before I got saved. And the fact of the matter is just that you have the belief, right? You say this could work, right? Then you read the Bible. Then you test the Bible against your own experience. And if your experience aligns with what the Bible dictates, then you say, okay, well, there may be something here. So then you read more of the Bible, right? You test it again. Now it shows, okay, well, this is still consistent. My experience aligns with what was written 2,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. Then you say, well, now I have enough belief, right? Aggregated belief. You know, my belief has been aggregated to a point where now I'm starting to build faith. Now I have an understanding of why I should have faith because I've read the Bible. So it's like a feedback loop almost. As you continue to build by doing, like, for example, like, it doesn't even have to be the Bible. Like, even if you talk to somebody and say, like, okay, this guy was addicted to drugs and, you know, he changed his life, turned it around, and the main thing, the key root of it was the fact that he found Jesus Christ, right? And then you replicate that 150 times, right? Mm-hmm. Now you have a foundation of experience that relates that belief to the faith in God.
I like that Marino copped that, because I think that's kind of what he was saying with kind of like the circular reasoning, only because he said, like, did you start?
You started with the belief already before you read the Bible.
Exactly.
Is what I was saying.
So did you, like, believe in God and then you started reading the Bible to qualify that belief, or were you looking for answers and you looked to the Bible for answers and then determined it is God? Because those are like two separate ideologies.
Well, yeah, no, I believe that God could be the answer. That's what I was just explaining. Like,
well, you already have like confidence in yourself that this is the answer before you took the Bible with no feelings involved. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, no, but I took a lot of different routes before that. Like, just the people in this room can literally tell you. Like, that's why I'm confused. That's why I'm like, you know, you were there when I was talking about, you know, the fifth dimension feeding energy into us and shit like that. So it's like,
right. No,
you know, I tried a lot of different things before reaching the biblical point.
Yeah. No, I get that. And I'm not saying, like, that doesn't diminish your experience. It's just my thing with religion, which sometimes I see with people, is that it wasn't that they went into it like, okay, like, I found religion and then I realized it answers my question. They already kind of were like, I want to believe in God. And then, like, because when you do that, a lot of times you're going to, like, self-qualify a lot of the answers to it. So, because, like, that's why they don't, in the scientific method, they never start with, like, determining an answer. They basically look at the evidence, and then the evidence makes the answer. So it's like, if that
couldn't be true.
That's literally what it is. Like,
so you're telling me that people don't go towards a goal.
They start with a hypothesis. Yes.
They're not supposed to.
They're trying to get to a place, but they're not saying, like, we're going to get to this place. If the whatever the hypothesis is, if it doesn't come out, they'll just try again.
Right. So the hypothesis was the God of Abraham is real, but there were plenty of hypotheses before that.
Yeah, but a lot of times they have to have a starting point. Like, they'll already know a couple of things. Like, let's say with gravity, like, they didn't start by saying, like, I believe there's an invisible force that acts upon the earth, and now we're going to research to prove that. What they did is they looked at the things around them. They studied how, like, you know, space and time correlate, and, like, you know, mass correlates with how things are attracted to each other, and then determined, okay, there must be a force at play, because we know that, like, we can observe and test that these things, you know, when these things happen, this is the result, and we're going to call that result gravity. But they didn't start by saying things fall because gravity, and now we're going to prove what gravity is.
Well, that sounds like a straw man, because that's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'm saying that people have a belief in, okay, you could replace gravity with a belief in God.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people who find success in life due to their belief in God. Therefore, God may be real. Is that not the same?
I mean, like, I guess you could say that, because I get what you're saying, because God is a concept that's like everyone knows about. So it's not like, it like I said, it's not like you're kind of prescribing something that people aren't aware of. It's just the idea that when you started by saying, like, I believed God could be the answer, so then I started studying God. Because you're basically saying I was looking for an answer that was going to end up in it being God. And so at that point, are you researching to find answers, or are you researching to qualify the belief? Because I think that's when you create inherent bias.
Well, no, I researched a lot of things before God. I researched like aliens.
Okay.
You know, I researched like.
But did you want to believe in aliens?
I wanted to believe in anything that would help me. You know, if you actually could understand like the level of like mental illness I was dealing with, it's like I wanted to find something that would help me recover from whatever it was I was suffering from. Therefore, you know, obviously I grew up in the church, right? And I was someone who was a devout atheist. I was really against God. I didn't want anything to do with the church. I didn't want the church to be a solution. But through actual investigation, I found belief at the very minimum, right? So it's not like it took me, you know, since I was really sick when I came back from Thailand, and after coming back from Thailand, it took about 3 years for me to actually choose to go to church, right? Because it was also COVID, so I didn't even have the option to go to church, but I wouldn't have went either way. But the fact of the matter is just that you can have evidence of God, is what I'm basically saying. It's just a matter of, can you get someone else to hand you evidence of God? It doesn't necessarily work like that, because it's like if you expect spiritual evidence of if you expect physical evidence of a spiritual experience, then you're just looking in the wrong direction, right? So you can't necessarily apply.
Can you say that again? Can you say that one more time?
If you expect physical evidence of a spiritual experience, then you're going to fail at finding it, because that's not how it works. You can have physical, probably the peak of physical evidence would be like testimony, right? A person can tell you their experience, but they can't even tell you their full experience, because even if they did, you wouldn't necessarily understand it, because you don't have that spiritual background to be capable of even not thinking that it's bullshit.
Very true. Exactly. That's why I think it's a very personalized experience.
But it's illogical.
So do you have faith? Do you have faith in the Virgin Mother?
Virgin Mary?
Yeah.
Do I have faith in her?
Yeah.
I have faith that she gave birth to Jesus.
As a virgin.
Sure, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Did we lose the plot?
This was fun. This was actually a really fun conversation.
Yeah. Well, I guess.
How long we been going, Leezy?
Yeah, it's been a while.
What's that clock say?
46.
Holy
damn.
All right. Yeah, we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to close it out by reading this Bible verse.
All right. Give us some script.
Now faith is the...
Well, thanks a lot, Leezy.
Yeah, Leezy just ruined it. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. For by it the people of old received their commendation. By faith we understand that the universe was created by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible. So that literally just ties into what I was saying. You know, what is made is not. So the things that made the universe are not visible. Therefore, if you seek them, you would find them. But most people don't do the investigation to actually find it. That's my opinion, of course, and my experience. Is it logical? Zoe says no.
Yeah, well, like I said, listen.
I'm lost on this one though, because
Yeah.
it's like you can find something you can't see.
Yeah.
I'm really stuck on that.
The atoms that make up the universe or something. Like you can't.
Yeah.
Well, you could see them
You can
through a
see that,
microscope, but
yeah.
you can't see all of them. We still don't know all of them.
But the assumption is that God would exist outside of the univerce.
What does that mean?
Right. What does it mean? That's the question.
Physically wrap your brain around.
I think this is my closing, because I don't want to spark any argument that I'll drag it on. But I guess when it comes to faith, I think faith is something that can be interpreted a lot of ways. But I think it's just an idea or a belief that people hold to themselves, because I think at the end of the day, people want answers, and people want to know that if they don't know how to get answers, that there's a way that they can attack life to at least feel comfortable in the ambiguity.
Comfort.
And so
Like comfort.
at the end of the day, whether you look for those answers organically, or basically you prescribe an answer and work to prove that, at the end of the day, it just goes back to the fact that everyone has faith because everyone wants to believe in something. I think that's...
Well, I don't want to start an argument either, but I mean, just
Okay,
I actually find the opposite of what you just said to be true. I think that people that don't have faith in a religious thing actually are the ones that seek an answer, and because they don't have an answer, they don't continue seeking. Is kind of how I would put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I
see. Flame being lit.
Hey, man, we got another 40 minutes.
Oh man, he just wants to do this all day. Well, I'll say this. I can see how you say that. I think there's many answers people could seek, whether it's physical or spiritual. How you choose to tackle it, I guess, is up to the holder, because this is something you really can't prove. Like I said, I think faith is just kind of innate. Like Lizzie said, it's kind of innate to the individual. And I think multiple verging perspectives on it, are things that hold a wide range of discussion for the future.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's close this one out. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you follow the Code Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. We're also on Patreon. $5 a month gets you the entire backlog of My Black Friends podcast, as well as any future content we create for either platform. Thank you guys for watching. We got to pop out of here.
All right, everyone. Peace. And Steve is wrong.